Growing up, I always felt like furniture in my own house. Useful, quiet, mostly ignored unless I got in the way. My parents weren't cruel. That would have been easier to name. They just chose someone else. Lena, my cousin, came to live with us when we were both 10. From day one, they treated her like a gift from the heavens. She was their little jewel. That's what they called her. Jewel. And me? I was told to be grateful. Grateful that I had a roof, meals, and a cousin to look up to. Whenever I tried to shine, it was, "Stop being dramatic, Amelia," or "Let Lena have her moment." Her moment was every moment. School plays, dance recitals, even dinner conversations. She was the headline. I was the footnote. I learned quickly how to disappear in plain sight, to clap for her achievements, even as I sat on my hands just to stop them from trembling. Because what hurt wasn't just being overlooked, it was being expected to applaud it. When college applications rolled around, I didn't even bother asking for help. I knew better by then. They were too busy organizing campus tours for Lena, taking out loans, talking about her future like it was theirs too. I filled out my own forms, applied to state schools, took the bus to a guidance counselor because nobody had the time to drive me. One night, I overheard my dad say, "Amelia's smart enough, but Lena's special." And that one sentence carved something in me I wouldn't understand until much later. I remember sitting in my room, trying to figure out how much I'd need in student loans to cover tuition, housing, books, all while hearing laughter from downstairs. Lena had just gotten accepted into some expensive private university, and my parents threw her a little celebration. Balloons, cake. My mom even opened the bottle of wine she'd been saving since their anniversary. I wasn't invited downstairs. They didn't even know I was listening from the top step, holding my own acceptance letter in my hand. No one asked where I'd be going. No one cared. It wasn't just the money. It was the message. They chose to invest in her. My dad took on an extra shift at the factory. My mom cleaned houses on weekends again, something she swore she'd never do after her back surgery. All for Lena. "She deserves it," they said. "She just needs the right push." I wanted to scream, "What about me?" But I didn't. Because I'd learned by then, my voice didn't echo in that house. What I did instead was simpler. I started making lists, budgeting my life. I got a part-time job at a diner 2 towns over, lied about my age to get it. I printed out a calendar and mapped out deadlines, application fees, scholarship essays. Every checkmark on that paper felt like a rebellion, like proof that I existed, that I mattered, even if only to myself. I didn't tell them what I was doing. I didn't need to. They were too busy planning Lena's dorm room color scheme. The day Lena left for college, the house turned into a theater of farewells. My parents cried, hugged her like they were sending her to war. My mom tucked cash into her purse, whispering, "Don't tell Amelia, this is just between us." I stood in the kitchen, pretending to wash a dish that had been clean for 10 minutes. No one said goodbye to me that morning. No one noticed I didn't come to the car. I think part of me died right there, between the fridge and the sink, the part that still hoped to be seen. A week later, I moved into a cramped dorm room at a public university 3 hours away. No teary goodbye, no help with bags. I paid for my own bedding with tips from the diner and brought pots from the thrift store. But I had something Lena didn't: hunger. Not just for success, for proof. Proof that I could become something without anyone handing it to me. That maybe, just maybe, the girl they forgot could end up unforgettable. And still, I kept a photo of my parents on my desk. Not out of love, out of something murkier, like needing a witness to the life I was building alone. I stared at it often in those first weeks, wondering, would they ever see me for who I was becoming? Or was I always meant to be their shadow, even in my brightest moments? I don't remember sleeping much during college. Not because of parties or friends or wild nights out. I didn't have time for those. I worked the early shift at the diner on weekends, cleaned offices at night during the week, and crammed textbooks into every hour in between. My hands smelled like coffee grounds and bleach, and my feet ached constantly. But every time I felt like quitting, I'd picture Lena, lounging somewhere warm, sunglasses on, her Instagram caption something like, "Deserve this break." She'd switched majors twice by then. Dropped a semester to travel and reflect. Meanwhile, I skipped my own birthday senior year because it fell during finals, and I couldn't afford the distraction. I'd watch her stories, sipping wine in Santorini, while I ate instant noodles at my desk, highlighter in one hand, calculator in the other. My parents never called to ask how I was doing, but they reposted every single one of Lena's vacation pictures, with emojis, every time. Still, I kept my head down. I wasn't chasing anyone's approval anymore. I was building something solid, brick by brick. By the time I graduated, I had no debt, 3 job offers, and a tired but relentless belief in myself. My cap and gown came in the mail, no ceremony, no audience. I wore it alone in my apartment one night, looked in the mirror, and whispered, "You did it." It was the only applause I got, and strangely, it was enough. My first job in finance wasn't glamorous. It was spreadsheets, coffee runs, late nights triple-checking numbers that no one noticed, unless I got them wrong. But I showed up early, stayed late, took notes when others rolled their eyes. I didn't flirt, I didn't schmooze, I just worked. Quietly, steadily, always the one in the corner people forgot until they needed something done right. I became reliable, then indispensable, and eventually, promoted. Still, the silence from my family was deafening. On my birthday, they'd send a one-line text. No calls, no questions. Just, "Happy birthday. Hope you're well." I stopped replying. I think they noticed, but not enough to ask why. Lena, of course, was still the group chat star. She had started a lifestyle blog, or maybe it was a wellness business. It changed every few months. My parents bragged that she was an entrepreneur now, as if failure dressed in glitter was still success if it came from her. I didn't argue, I just kept building. My apartment got bigger, my clothes got sharper, but my heart? It stayed guarded. I didn't bring people close, didn't risk softness. Because when the ones who are supposed to love you most treat you like a placeholder, you stop expecting more from anyone else. I learned how to be my own anchor, my own cheerleader, my own home. There were moments, late at night, after another win at work or another quiet dinner alone, when I'd wonder what it might have felt like to have someone proud of me. Not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but genuinely proud. I used to imagine my mother hugging me at graduation, my father telling me I'd made him proud. Simple dreams, dreams I tucked away, like old receipts in the back of a drawer. Useless, forgotten, but still there. I never told anyone what it cost me to get where I was. How many holidays I worked through. How many times I cried in a bathroom stall between shifts. No one saw the girl behind the salary. The girl who gave up dances and dates and family dinners, not because she wanted to, but because no one ever made room for her at the table. I wasn't bitter. I was just removed, detached in the way only the deeply disappointed learn to be. And then, just when I'd almost forgotten the sound of their voices, they came back. One ordinary evening, after years of silence broken only by polite birthday texts, they appeared. On my doorstep. Tired. Nervous. Like they were carrying something heavy they could no longer hold alone. It was a Tuesday. I'd just finished a long meeting and was planning to eat leftovers in silence, maybe light a candle just to make the evening feel less empty. But when I opened the door, there they were. My parents. I hadn't seen them in years, not in person. My first thought wasn't anger. It was confusion. They looked smaller, older than I remembered. My father's shoulders had slumped. My mother's eyes darted like she was trying to find something familiar in me. There was no hug, just a hesitant, "Hi, Amelia," like they weren't sure they were welcome. They asked to come in. I didn't say yes. I just stepped aside. They sat on my couch like guests in a stranger's home, holding their coats in their laps, glancing at framed degrees and bookshelves like they told a story they hadn't read. After a few seconds of awkward small talk, the truth came spilling out in pieces. Lena. Loans. Defaults. Regrets. My mother twisted her wedding ring while my father stared at the floor. "We thought she'd finish," he said quietly. "We thought she'd make something of it." Turns out, Lena had left school 2 years in. Didn't tell them at first. Said she needed to find herself, whatever that means. Traveled on borrowed money, started ventures that fizzled, burned through every cent they had. Now the creditors were calling, and the savings were gone. And for the first time in my life, they were looking at me, not to dismiss me, but to rescue them. I listened, that's all I did. I sat across from them with my hands folded, my face still. Inside, my thoughts ran wild, like a dam cracking. Every birthday they skipped. Every time they called Lena their daughter in front of me. Every night I fell asleep knowing I didn't matter enough. It all rushed back, loud and sharp. But I said nothing, just nodded. Let them speak. Let them scramble. It was strange, really, how quickly desperation made people remember you existed. "We know we made mistakes," my mother whispered, her voice trembling just enough to seem sincere. "But you're the only one who's doing well now. We're still your parents." That line hit like ice in the chest. Still your parents. As if biology alone entitled them to the life I had built from nothing. As if forgetting me for decades could be wiped clean with a shared last name and a guilt-laced apology. My father leaned in then, not angry, just tired. "You've always been strong, Amelia. We admire that. You've done so well." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. The first compliment I'd ever heard from his mouth, and it came not at my graduation, not at my first promotion, but at his lowest moment, when I had something he wanted. It wasn't admiration. It was survival. They didn't ask directly at first. Just danced around it. Phrases like, "a little help," "short term," "family supports family." I let them talk. Let them fill the air with words that tried to patch years of silence. And all the while, I stayed quiet. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I wanted them to sit in it. In the silence I used to live in the weight of being ignored for so long. I could see them shift in their seats, uncomfortable, unsure. That was new for them. Being the ones who needed to be chosen. At one point, my mother reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold, shaky. "We don't have anyone else," she said. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. I just looked at her, really looked. The woman who had once told me Lena was the one with potential. And in her eyes, I saw it. Fear. Not just fear of losing their house or facing debt collectors. Fear that maybe I'd become a woman she didn't know how to read anymore, or reach. I told them I'd think about it, that I needed time. And I walked them to the door, watching as they shuffled back into the night. They didn't look back, and I didn't offer comfort. As I shut the door, I leaned against it and exhaled. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vengeful. I was something they'd never prepared for. Calm. And I already knew exactly what I was going to say when they came back. We met at a quiet cafe 3 days later. I chose the place. Not too loud, not too cozy, neutral ground. I arrived early, ordered tea I wouldn't drink, and laid out everything I'd brought, a folder full of forgotten history. When they walked in, I saw hope flash across their faces. My mother smiled too quickly. My father tried to meet my eyes like nothing had ever broken. They thought my silence meant surrender, that I'd agree, maybe even offer more than they asked for. They still didn't know me. I slid the folder across the table without a word. Inside were copies of my college acceptance letters, the ones I filled out alone, my tuition payment receipts, my scholarship essays, a photo of me in my graduation gown, standing alone in my kitchen, and at the very top, a handwritten note from my sophomore year where I asked them for help with books. My mother had scribbled across the bottom, "Ask your advisor. We're stretched with Lena." I watched their faces as they flipped through it all. Slowly, silently, the color drained from their skin. Then I spoke. Calmly, almost kindly. I built this life from scratch. No one clapped. No one carried me. I did it in the shadows, while you poured every dream into someone else, and she walked away from it. My voice didn't shake. If anything, it was steadier than ever. I wanted them to hear me with no anger, just truth. I didn't need to raise my voice. The evidence had already done that for me. They didn't interrupt. For once, they couldn't. My father just kept blinking, like each page was a slap he hadn't seen coming. My mother held her breath so tightly I thought she might crack. "We didn't know," she finally whispered. "We didn't realize it was that hard for you." I smiled then, not with warmth, but with something colder. Not cruel, just honest. That was the point, wasn't it? You never looked close enough to know. My voice softened, but not out of sympathy, out of certainty. You made a choice. Every single time. And now you're asking me to fix the consequences of your favorite mistake. My mother began to cry. Softly, hands pressed to her lips like she was trying to keep the sound in. My father reached for the folder again, as if reviewing the facts might change them. I didn't flinch. I let them sit in the weight of it. The years, the cost, the reality that the quiet daughter they ignored had been paying attention all along. Then, as gently as if I were offering them a drink refill, I gave them the answer they'd come for. "Yes, I'll help you, but not in the way you expect." I let the words hang in the air, heavy, confusing, deliberate. My mother looked up, hope flaring again. My father leaned in, relief already softening his brow. And I waited, just a second longer, before delivering what they never saw coming. "I'll help you," I repeated, "by letting you face what you created." My tone was steady, not angry, not bitter, just done. "You taught me how to survive without support. Now you'll learn how to survive without mine." My mother let out a soft, broken sound, the kind that usually drew sympathy. But not this time. I had no tears left for that version of her, the one who stood by while I faded into the background of my own childhood. "I'm not your safety net. I'm not your reward for finally noticing me," I said. "I'm the daughter you forgot existed until she became useful." My father's mouth opened, but no words came. Just a stunned silence that settled between us like fog. I stood up then, slowly, tucking the folder back into my bag. Not to erase it, but to carry it forward, as proof of who I'd had to become. Calm, independent, unapologetically unwilling to be the fallback plan. I looked at them one last time. My voice was quiet, but final. "I forgive you. But I won't save you." And with that, I walked out. Into the sun. Into my own life. Behind me, the cafe door closed with the softest click. But to me, it sounded like a vault ceiling shut. Not out of vengeance, out of peace. A peace I had earned, alone. These days, my life is quiet, and I like it that way. No chaos, no begging to be seen, No proving my worth to people who never looked. I wake up in a space I paid for, sip my morning coffee in silence, and know exactly who I am. Not someone else's daughter. Not someone's backup plan. Just Amelia, a woman who built a life out of scraps and silence. And finally, it fits me. Not like a borrowed dress, but like skin I grew into. Every now and then, I see Lena online. She's rebranded herself as a life coach, selling inspiration in pastel fonts and talking about empowerment between affiliate links. I don't judge her. I barely feel anything at all. That girl who once got the world handed to her now seems to be grasping for pieces of it. Maybe she'll find her version of peace. Maybe not. But either way, she no longer lives in the center of my story. As for my parents, I hear they moved into a smaller home. A friend from the old neighborhood mentioned it in passing. I didn't ask for details. What would I say? They gambled everything on their jewel, the bright, loud, shiny hope. And in the end, it slipped through their fingers. Meanwhile, the daughter they overlooked? She didn't shine to impress. She became solid, unshakable. The kind of woman who doesn't need anyone to notice her to know her own value. I spend my time now with women who remind me of who I used to be, overlooked, underestimated, barely holding things together. I mentor young professionals through a local nonprofit, help them navigate job interviews, build financial plans, speak up in rooms where they were taught to shrink. Some come from foster care, others from homes full of love but low on resources. But they all carry something in their eyes that I recognize instantly: hunger. Not for attention, but for stability, for self-worth, for freedom. Sometimes they ask me why I care. Why I spend my time this way when I could be chasing bigger roles, flashier titles, more money. I always smile and tell them the truth. Because no one did this for me. And I know what it feels like to build alone. That's the thing about being forgotten. It teaches you how not to forget others. It carves out space in you for empathy so deep, it turns into purpose. Not pity, empowerment. And when they succeed, when they get the job, negotiate the raise, walk out of a bad situation with their head held high, I feel something that no paycheck has ever given me. Not pride in myself, but pride in them. Because helping someone else rise without expecting anything in return, that's the kind of legacy I want, the kind of echo I wish someone had left behind for me. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that little girl. The one who sat on the stairs with her college acceptance letter in hand, while laughter echoed from the living room that never belonged to her. I wish I could go back and sit beside her, not to fix anything. Just to say, you were never invisible. You were just surrounded by people who chose not to see. And maybe that truth wouldn't have made it easier, but it would have made her feel less alone. I don't carry resentment anymore. That's the beauty of healing. It makes space where bitterness used to live. I don't call my parents. They don't call me. We exist in separate chapters now, and I've stopped trying to edit the pages they wrote without me. What matters is the story I've written for myself. Every sentence earned, every choice mine. No longer the forgotten daughter, simply a woman who decided she was worth remembering. And when people ask me how I became so grounded, so self-assured, I smile softly and offer them this. They bet on a jewel and ignored the diamond they already had.